everybody! Welcome to a fantastic new episode of Our Favorites.
Nice try.
Favorites.
Wait, is that a new voice you hear? Yes, it is. Ladies and gentlemen,
who could that be?
This is a very special episode. We have a guest star appearing, a very great fan of the show. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, thank you.
Okay, everybody, that was Hammy, a.k.a. Alex Hamilton. He is a very close friend, and he's joining us today for his input. We're so excited to have you here, and we're excited to get into our favorites.
Thank you for having me.
I am very excited. This is gonna be a good time. We got 4 people going crazy, so let's get into this.
Classic 4-way.
Classic. And anyway, and that was awkward. And today's episode is going to be covering World War II movies. In case you missed the thumbnail, we're getting into all of our favorite stuff that takes place during that very tough, very interesting era. But we got some good picks, and I'm ready to get into this. So your host is the one leading it away. And today, my favorite pick. What is this?
The long and winding road to get there is just killing you. You have your host is going to start there. It's just killing me.
I don't know if I realize that I go, okay, anyway. My favorite World War II movie has to be Life is Beautiful.
La Vita e Bella.
La Vita e Bella. Is that how you, okay. And the first time I watched this, I have to preface this by the first time I watched this was, I think it was 9th or 10th grade English class. They didn't tell us.
What year was that?
What year was 9th or, oh dear God, that would have been 2010, 11? Something around there. So yeah, a while ago. And they didn't tell us what this movie was about. They just said, hey, we're going to show you guys this movie. And none of our class was prepared for this emotional roller coaster. All of us were crying. Every single kid in my class was crying at this movie.
But you never cry.
Oh, yes, I do.
Yeah.
You know that. Oh, my God. This just hits me in the jugular, I swear. One of the things that I really love about this is that it goes from the highest of highs to obviously, it's covering World War II, and so they're in a Nazi camp, and it's really horrifying. Some of
the Holocaust.
The Holocaust, yes. Yes, which is, and I swear, some of those scenes were literally brutal and so hard to watch. But what I loved the most about it was that at the end of the day, you came out of this feeling hopeful. And I really like the fact that you can put like your main characters through absolute hell, make them go through the worst possible conditions humanly imaginable. And at the end of the day, he still is an optimistic person. And I think that's why I love this movie the most, is because why am I blanking on Roberto Benigni's character in this?
I'm gonna get it in just a second.
I can't remember his character. Guido, yes. His sense of optimism is, I think, is just matched with mine, which is why I like it the most, because like I just always like.
Do you drop flower pots on people's heads? I
don't do that. At least I don't remember ever doing that. Who knows?
Well, he does push people through walls.
I do, but yeah, no. That to the core is why I think this is my favorite World War II movie. And honestly, if I were to sit down and just like write out all my favorite movies, this would probably be like my top 10, top 15. It really, really is just, it's magical. But I want to ask you. It's beautiful. But what did you guys seen this, right?
Yes,
recently.
What did you guys think of it? Do you like this?
Are you gonna pounce on this one, or are you gonna hold off till me and Jake talk about it? Because I think me and Jake like it more than you do.
You do like it. I'll say my piece. I'm not like scathing.
I know. I'm just
not
curious.
The boogeyman.
Are you sure?
Well, I guess that's not for me to say.
Ooh.
I like it, or I think it's good.
Mm-hmm.
I guess like it. I guess this one I can like. For this, World War II is kind of a hard topic to talk about because it's a worldwide tragedy.
It's pretty depressing.
Yeah. And no, I think it's good. I think it just didn't align. I didn't connect with it as much. I think it's just more of my response to it and less anything on the movie. I think one of the things that you kind of missed when you were talking about it there is, you said, he ends the movie optimistic, and you get through that and feel so optimistic.
Mm-hmm.
I think what makes it more interesting is I think he's not optimistic about it. It's really scary for him. And you can see him trying to deal with this.
The kid or the dad?
The dad.
The dad.
Yes.
The dad. Yeah. Sorry. Roberto Benigni's character.
Guido.
Mm-hmm.
Guido is, not necessarily optimistic as he is trying to protect his son. And I think that is far more interesting because you can see him really struggle to deal with it.
Well, that's because, like, in my mind, like, him trying to protect his son is him. Okay, I guess optimistic is maybe not the right word, but I guess wholesome, I think, is maybe what I'm looking for. Hopeful. Yeah. Hopeful. That's the word. Thank you. I just like, just because, like, he's just trying to make the best for his kid.
The beauty of the story comes from the lengths he goes to protect his son from the horrors. Yeah. And I think that's what connected, because I saw this a while ago. I didn't rewatch it for this. I just didn't get around to it. That's my bad. But when I was watching it, I was like, this is two separate halves of the movie, because when it switches, it's when he goes to his bookshop and there's the writing on the outside. I think that's the moment it changes, right?
It's very stark.
It's like,
and it's like, oof. But then doesn't his son ask, what's that? And he has to explain it. It's like, okay. Because that first half is like a lighthearted, like a screwball comedy.
It is. It's Principessa. He always goes,
when he's doing that in the theater.
Yeah, I know.
The person looks at him.
It's like, what are you doing?
Is like he's always been he's a big comedy star in Italy.
Really? I didn't know that.
Oh, can you tell?
I know. It doesn't make sense. Yeah.
What is his name? I can't remember his first name. Troisi. What is his first name? The guy who's in the Postman, not the Kevin Costner Postman. Il Postino. They were like partners, comedy partners.
Okay.
And Troisi died literally like the day after filming The Postman.
Oh wow.
He was sick through it. So, like, they were a comedy team. So, like, whereas Troisi did Il Postino in, I think that came out in 94. I should have pulled that up my computer. And then this one came out in 97. Both big Oscar movies for being a foreign film. And so, you can see that he has that comedy root to it. But then when it gets serious, it's like, of course, it kind of is, we were talking about Jojo Rabbit beforehand. It kind of has the same thing where, because he also directed this, like Taika directed Jojo. He inserts himself into the movie. I think his, though, here is a much different performance than Taika.
Oh, this is
not just a little bit about that.
But yeah.
I didn't even think about the similarities until now.
That is actually kind of interesting. I never even put that together, that they both have, like, a weirdly hopeful and wholesome look at that kind of stuff.
One just does it better than the other.
Ooh, that's
one. It's this one, by the way.
I like Jojo Rabbit, but I'll cop that. Life is Better does
this
it.
one.
This does it really.
This
really
one
well.
handles the material in a much better way. I think in a way more responsible way. I think is the way I would frame it personally.
He doesn't really sugarcoat really anything.
Yeah.
No, this one really gives it to you. I mean, we're full spoilers, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
There's the shot right at the end of the film where he's walking his son like through the camp as everyone, it's kind of chaos. And there's that shot where it's a mural, as far as filmmaking goes. And I think part of that kind of makes it harder to stomach, where there's just the pile of them. And it's a really harrowing moment.
Like, yeah, it really is. And you mentioned that, and I'm trying to remember what I feel like when they were. I'm trying to remember like where in the movie this takes place, but he told his son to go play hide and seek to get him to pretty much just like hide from the officers. If I remember,
isn't that the end of the movie? Doesn't he hide?
It's very close to the end.
It's a couple. I think so. Parts, because the first part is when because the kid doesn't want to take a bath or a shower earlier in the film.
Yes,
and that's where the Nazis were killing the kids and the women and the old people by having them go to the showers.
Right,
they didn't want to. They had them hide, and there was another part where there was the German kids who were running around, and they hid with them because they were playing hide and seek. And it comes back at the end. Full circle where he's hiding in the same hiding spot they found the kid earlier, but through the chaos of it all. I
just thought that was a really, really clever way of just bringing that into it and just like using a simple childhood game as a way to escape from all that crap.
So I also did not get a chance to rewatch this, mostly because the only thing on HBO Max is the English dub, and I hate it.
That's depressing.
It is.
I watched on Canopy, I think.
But
I should own this.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Hammy. You have the freshest take on this. Is the last shot the kids in the mailbox, and you just see through the slot of the mailbox the dad like walk by with the officer behind him.
He's dressed like a woman because he's trying to break into the women's side of the camp to find
that's the
Dora.
last you see of Guido.
Because then you hear the machine gun.
Yeah. But he's doing like the funny march thing. Yeah. You say it's him trying to keep that world protected for his child. That actually made a funny connection in my head. One of the a movie that came out, I guess last year, maybe earlier this year, Belfast. That's one of the things what?
Yeah, it was last year.
Okay. So that's one of the things I appreciated the most about it was the way that it portrays this kid's just complete innocence to this.
What's happening?
This thing that's in him. And then like with Life is Beautiful, it's much the same, except you get to see the parents actively trying to keep it. Well, the parent in this situation.
That's a really interesting comparison. I didn't put that together.
Which then brings up the controversial part of the movie that has always been a discussion is it okay to make a comedy that isn't satirical about the Holocaust and World War II? Like, satire is one thing, but like this kind of movie, it's like this is a comedy.
It's like
and it's using the Holocaust.
It's a fine line. Like it could taking that kind of approach, you could easily step over that line and make something that's really not good, like not responsible. But I think the way that this handles it, and this is just from my opinion, and somebody else could feel completely different, which I understand, but I think this handles it responsibly because you feel the weight of what's happening. But at the end of the day, when you look at the like the human connections in this, like the very basics of just the dad looking out for his kid, that relationship is what remains hopeful.
I think it's less about, we're not making fun of anything. Is it okay to portray this as like the backdrop to a comedy? I think that's what most people bring up. It's not as easy as saying like I'm okay with it or I'm not okay with it. For me, it's like I like the movie a lot. I love this movie. It is one of those things. I don't know how to answer that. I don't have the perspective that some people have. Well, less people every year now because that was almost, we're pushing 80, 90 years.
It's getting close to 100. Yeah,
it's one of those things. I don't know how to answer that. Does anyone else have their own take on that?
I know there have been other movies, and I think there'll be other movies that we'll discuss in this episode that make me think that it's not okay to satire something like that. I think that the first half of this film, before it changes, sets the tone and makes it feel like more of a comedy than maybe it actually is.
Absolutely does.
I agree with you that it's not making fun of it. I agree with you that it's not really a satire.
It's not at all.
Well, yeah. I just think it's more a story about what a parent would do to protect their child.
I 1000% agree with that. That's what I want to take out.
Yeah, my whole thing being, we're not making fun of it because that's an easy you shouldn't make fun of that. But we're doing the thing where we're using this for entertainment purposes, again, as a backdrop. Is that okay? I don't know.
But you could argue that about any movie because
that's what I'm saying.
Theoretically, any movie is supposed to be about entertainment.
Yeah.
I'll add that I've mentioned already that I do think it ends up handling the content responsibly. But when I was going through these watches for this episode, I watched said film first in this list.
Yeah.
So it does set a tone. And I will say I did not feel it was appropriate for a majority of the runtime. I did feel kind of, puzzled. It wasn't until the very end where they really pull the rug from under you. And again, the shot I mentioned, Body is the one with the mailbox. Those very poignant moments, I think, do a strong enough job of juxtaposing to really pull the audience back in to show the horrors of the Holocaust, the severity of it. But it does take nearly 2 hours to get to that point where, yeah, like the first half, it's very, very straightforward slapstick comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And for a while when I was watching, I was like, I know this is supposed to, because I hadn't seen it. This was my first time watching it.
Oh, okay, cool.
I know we get to a concentration camp. I know we get here, but you spend a long time. I mean, it's a full half of the movie where they're just, it's just goofy Italians.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't even mention the Jewish heritage until the very tail end of even the funny part. Not even that. They do a couple parts in the beginning, like the wedding on the horse. They paint the horse. And that was the first time they like acknowledged it.
Isn't there that bit with the hat in the beginning where he's always taking his hat? Wasn't he a Nazi officer? I don't remember.
I don't. And maybe I just missed it when I was watching. I feel like they're just. It didn't feel like there was a lot of fascist sort of imagery up until that, like.
I think that might be a little bit the point too. Is that like.
Yeah. No. I agree.
And I don't want to get into the whole not all Nazis debate thing.
Oh God. Yeah.
But it just before the war, these were just kind of potentially normal people that
get caught up in
we're
something
okay with each other.
And there's a time jump too, obviously, because the kid had yet to be born in that first half of the film. And there's a discussion at the wedding where they, I recall, I don't know if it was I don't know who the woman was in relation, but there was a woman talking to, what's the mother's name?
Dora.
Oh.
Her, and then at the time, their fiance. And they're talking about like how kids had to do a math problem where they're shipping people off to die because they're not paying taxes or something like that. And like there's that allusion to something greater, something more sadistic happening in the world, but it is kind of understated until the time jump. And that's where you see, and also in that scene, the horse, and then the time jump with the bookshop. And then from there, it takes like 5 minutes to get on the train. Yeah. And we're there.
Like they're.
And she didn't have to go, but she chose to.
She chose to go because they were going.
The kid, at the very end of the movie, he walks out of the mailbox, and again, spoilers, doesn't he find a convoy of people? Like it was right at the end of
the Americans coming tank.
Yeah.
Which is a nice thing because it's like, oh, if you win the prize, you win a tank, and then an American tank rolls.
Yeah. I remember him walking up to a woman. Was that his mother?
Yes.
Okay.
Right at the end, they found his mother.
Okay.
We did it. We won. Yep, we did.
That's right. Okay. I apologize. I really should have rewatched this.
And the voiceover comes in saying that it wasn't like he'll never forget what his father did for him.
Yeah. That was my father's gift to me, or his sacrifice.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really is a very, very good movie.
Yeah.
It ties it very well at the end. I was not responding to it much, for a majority of it. I feel like on a rewatch, I would probably feel a lot better about it because I would understand where it's going. I think part of it was jarring to me where the entire first hour of this 2-hour movie was silly slapstick.
It's a weird thing when if you know what the movie is about, it's a very weird, this is the start of it.
Yeah, because I had just heard of it. I just knew little things about it. I hadn't visited ever.
All right, well, on that note, let's move on to our next pick, which is coming from Jake.
Oh, it's me next? Okay.
Sure, why not? We're going to bounce around here.
So I could have picked a billion different things.
Oh, there's so many different.
Am I going to do the slow roll review here, or you just want me to jump into it?
Do the slow roll. Do whatever you do. Okay. Do whatever your heart desires.
Oh, boy. You don't want that.
Now I'm scared.
You should be. I could have picked so many different things. I love World War II.
Let me just cut to the chase. It's Valkyrie. Jake picked Valkyrie.
Oh God! Funny story. I did watch that right around the time I watched Hammy's pick and watched your pick.
We don't need to talk
my
about
pick.
That.
I could have picked Saving Private Ryan. I could have picked
Thin Red Line.
Yeah, Thin Red Line. What's the name of the one I watched? Longest Day.
Yeah.
I could have picked that. No. What do I pick? King's Speech. I really.
Hey, I'm that far away. There you go.
Hey, we taught Dickey something today.
Yeah.
Did not watch the movie.
But I got that now.
But he remembers when it came out.
So I love the King's Speech. I remember watching this in theaters when it came out, and feeling the suspense of the movie and being like when he goes to make the final speech, even though you know what's going to happen, you just kind of like talk. On this rewatch, I can see a few more of like people's problems with it. Like in the back of your mind, you're watching like, okay, this is kind of like a rich white person problem sort of thing. Like it is a pivotal moment in history. Like they even talked about it in the film when Birdie says, why am I expected to rally this country when I have nothing to say or nothing to do with how they go to war or what they go to war or when they go to war, but I'm expected to carry this. Like that part I relate to, and like I really like this time especially related to the fact that he has a disability because I have a disability, and I appreciated more the way that they portrayed that as not offensive as it so easily could have been.
Is it kind of like they're not trying to get rid of it, they're trying to work with it?
They like start trying to get rid of it, and then Jeffrey Roche kind of teaches him to work through it.
Doesn't Churchill say something right before the speech? He's like, I used to stutter too as a youth, and I learned. What did he say? He said something like, I learned to just go with it or something. He came up with something to speak with it, which says something about, and it's like, not wrong. It's just trying to speak better with it.
Yeah, and like while my disability is severely different, it's not the same. I appreciated the approach to that, and with what I felt was respect towards it on it.
So, really quick question: isn't this directed by the guy who made Les Mis?
Yes, Tom Hooper.
This is a much superior.
I was gonna say, and the other movie
much superior movie.
Because
Cats?
No, this is
Les Mis.
Oh God. Well, because I was trying to remember, because I remember a lot of people were like iffy on, like, I feel like I'm trying to remember some of the complaints that they were saying that it's like he shoots everything that's like really close up and just like it's in your face.
I don't get that from this.
Tom Hooper is all about like hyper realism in his movies, but not this. This is what I was noticing watching it this time. I haven't seen this since the year it came out, so I'm watching this and thinking like this doesn't feel like his other movies, because Les Mis, and I don't know about The Danish Girl, I've not seen it, but then Cats. Cats and Les Mis do this thing where he wants to make it realistic. He wants it to look gritty and dirty and just feel like you're actually there in his own way. But when I watched this felt like a play. When I was talking to Jake a while ago, I was like, I thought this was based off a play, and we look up, a play was adapted from this, but it's an original screenplay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is original.
It was based off a play.
No, again, it feels like a play because it's mostly dialogue in smaller rooms. And the way it's shot, even like, it's mostly just indoors. There's some stuff outside, like any movie or most movies, but
it stands out.
It just kind of feels more contained, and I think that's the point. So when I'm watching it, I'm like, this doesn't feel like what Tom Hooper's movies have become, and I wonder if it's just because this is his first theatrical. I think.
Is it really?
I watched some behind the scenes, or like I read. I don't remember if I watched it or I read it, to be honest. Around when I rewatched it, and he said that this was like he also had a speech impediment when he was a child, and so he was always really inspired by this because it was such a big moment for him in history, and I think that's probably why the screenwriter, because Tom Hooper is not. I think because the screenwriter heard it live, which the screenwriter was David Seidler, who I believe was like one of the oldest screenplay nominees or winners or whatever.
Go him. That's awesome.
Whoever it was, though, was like really impassioned by this. And I think as such, there was a lot more care put into making it to make sure that it was respectful of the time and not super intense. Because it's not really an intense story.
It seems like one of those where like you could, if you wanted to, make it very, like, you get really invested in him taking over that, which I appreciate because it's a simple enough premise that you could really just get into and make it super interesting.
Yeah. It's...
What did you see?
What's going on back there? You two are smirking and laughing about something.
I went to David Seidler's Letterboxd page. You sure you want to see? You want to hear this?
What are you? I have to know.
It's the most Jared thing I've ever seen in my life.
Well, I clicked on David Seidler's name to see if there was a birth date on here, and it didn't show it. But then there was something in the filmography I had seen. Madeline Lost in Paris.
Oh yeah, classic.
I go. Oh, I've seen that. So I marked that I watched it, and he was watching me. You are
right. That is the most Jared thing.
Most Jared thing. Oh, quickly, let me write this on Letterboxd.
Well, if I don't.
Madeline Launched in Paris.
I think I actually did watch that like ages ago.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
The King's Speech.
The King's Speech, though.
Anyway, so if none of you already know, Jared has a number of old Best Picture retrospective kind of ish things. Yeah. I watched his original breakdown of this from 2016.
Yep.
One of your main complaints about it was the dialogue is all cut short.
Wow, I forgot all about that. Yeah.
Would you say on this rewatch that it's the same?
It felt the same. I feel like, and maybe I'm mixing it up with another movie I just saw, where it's like a scene will start playing out and you're waiting for it to continue and then it just stops. I can't think of, I think maybe the scene when he's fiddling with the model airplane and you're actually getting some backstory. I think maybe it was a preference then. It still would be where I want the scene to keep going because there's actual good stuff happening and then it just cuts off.
So
I did feel that.
My kind of
I forgot all about that.
Retort to that, and it might be accurate, it might not be. I like the pacing of the dialogue or the conversations because I feel like it puts a certain amount of tension into a movie where there's not a ton of tension. It's
less external tension, it's internal tension.
Mm-hmm. But I think that makes
anxiety. It's inner anxiety.
I think that makes at least me, feel it more.
Is that where I don't know anything about speech impediments and stutters? Is a lot of it coming from some kind of like internal trauma and anxiety? Isn't that where a lot?
Yeah, well, from? I mean, they don't, and I really appreciate this about the movie. They don't really delve into it a whole lot.
Yeah, but you
do get that scene where he talks about.
Are you naturally left-handed? Right.
Yeah, his nanny.
Or were there any other corrections?
Yeah.
And then the whole thing with the nanny not feeding him. That's.
Yep.
What did he say? It took, and I like how they worded it, where it's like it took mother and father 3 years. It's like I like how he didn't say like it was 3 years. He made a point of pointing out like it took them because they weren't noticing 2 or 3 years to notice.
Yeah,
doesn't sound like a fun life to live.
No, and that's the other thing. It's like we say, it's rich white people problems, but it's also the type of problem that people like us will never understand.
And on the other side of that, it's like, here's a guy who does not want to be king, who's kind of thrust into that spot when he doesn't necessarily want to because, he has trouble speaking, and that's a very public thing. And on top of that, the world is blowing up, and he has to be this voice of, like, comfort and hope for his people when he's not, as you said, a governing body. Yeah, so he's kind of wrestling with all this stuff. Like, I'm kind of helpless, and I'm forced to do this.
Yeah. I don't know anything about British politics or the royal family really or anything, but it just makes me wonder if like the royal family now, if something like that were to happen, if they would even need to shoulder any of that.
And it's the queen now is one of his daughters, right?
Yes.
Yeah. The older daughter. Okay. I thought, wow. Because she took the throne in 52 when he died?
That sounds about right.
He died, 52 or 53.
Because he smoked a lot. Mm-hmm. So that means she's been in power, the queen first on the throne. 70? Is that 70?
It's
50 to 70 years this year.
Long time, yeah.
Wow.
Which makes me really want a complete side note. That makes me really want The Crown to come back because I really like the
show. You're talking about the show.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes. The show.
I want The Crown to go away in real life.
Yeah. Yes. The show itself was great. But complete side note. Just want to throw that out there.
I think that there's value though. You talk about the rich white people thing though. World War II. World is in that title. And I think that there's value in seeing, these other perspectives that it doesn't all need to be these horrible, bleak atrocities because there's a lot of aspects to it. It's such the scope of it is so magnificent. I think I think there's value in it. Besides, I think people who write it off so quickly, it's like, oh, well, what issue is that? Just talk, whatever. Well, I think is underselling it.
Yeah, and to kind of go on top of that, when you can make like people care about a problem that they will never have, or a specific there's like a word, like a vocab word that I'm missing out, but like when you can have people care about like something that they will never ever go through, they will never have to deal with, but because
empathy,
no, like a crisis. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Like a crisis that you will never have to deal with yourself, but you make that character very empathetic. I just think that's very impressive when a movie or a show can do that.
I think what works about it too is a few different times we've mentioned, normal people won't ever go through that. But I think what makes it so impactful is it's something you won't go through. Like, you're never going to be king. You might have a speech impediment. It's a very human thing. It humanizes the crown in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. I was just thinking that, yeah. And like Jeffrey Roche in this, he's fantastic.
He's really good.
He's fantastic in everything he does, to be honest.
I like the whole those other doctors told me that smoking was good for it. Well, I think breathing smoke in your lungs is harmful. He goes, well, they told me, so they're idiots. They've been knighted. So it's official then.
Great chemistry.
That's fantastic.
I also really appreciate the where is it? When he's sitting on the throne, like I think it's in a
they're at the what is that called? Westminster. Westminster Abbey. And he's just sitting there chilling. He's like, what are you doing?
There's so much underlying, like, I don't even want to call it a subplot, but there's like so much implied about the way this person lives his life that is just it's just fascinating to me.
He's an unorthodox person.
He's also Australian, so he has a bit of.
And he's also not actually a doctor.
Yeah, so there's a disconnect to how he's viewing that part of the world. So his character might have those trepidations, much like the critics of this movie, where it's like, why should I care about the monarchy of this country that is,
and a giant colonialist empire.
Yeah, why should I care? There's that. I love that line in that scene where he's like, "Why should I care about this chair? There's writing in the side. Like, people are writing on this thing. Who cares?"
I also like the bit where when Helena Bonham Carter first shows up as Mrs. Johnson, and he basically says, "Let's tell him you can come back later." And what if I told you he was the Duke of York? And he just walks back out and goes, his face he's like, oh. Just that's all he needed. And he talks. He says a line, but it's like that's all you need. Is he's like, great.
I know, and I also know that like with Helena Bonham Carter, a lot of people call her performance pretty robotic. I don't think so.
I think she's good. I wish she was. And you said this too. When you said it, it's like, I wish she was in it more.
She doesn't get a lot to work with. I think criticizing her performance is unfair. I think just that character in the screenplay just doesn't have a lot to do.
I also think that there's a level of just British. I think British people, at least in that era, might have been more stiff.
Oh yeah, and I was gonna say Helena Bonham Carter. She knows how to bring it. Like when you look at when she was in The Crown or when she was in Harry Potter, like she can play like crazy. And so, like, I know for a fact that she can bring it if she gets the right material and the right amount of screen time.
She's very believable in the role. Mm-hmm. Like, she does a good job. But there's a lot of scenes where she's, like, in some of the sessions, but because it's montage, she doesn't get a lot to play around. You don't really get to see, her skills really shine. There's just a couple spare moments here and there. And I think if she were in it a lot more, again, those critics might not be so forward on that point.
Fair enough.
I think the last real point I have about it is that I love the sound design too. With all the like miking and stuff, all the different like tape recorder sounds and like radio and like that, it just makes me feel very nostalgic for a time that I wasn't even really alive in. Wasn't even alive.
I was gonna say, really alive in? Really?
This is like
sorry, I pulled a Dickey there.
This is almost 50 years before you were born.
This was 10 years. Like, wait, what? No, 12 years before my dad was born.
I was born. I remember that radio broadcast. I was super inspired.
Oh my god!
Made me want to start.
I didn't even know we had a stammer.
Made me want to start a podcast.
Red light blink 4 times. It's off.
Yeah, like the sound that those tube lights make when they light up, though, like
very satisfying.
I just love it.
Yeah,
I love a climax that can just be 2 guys in a room covered in blankets, and I'm sitting at the edge of my seat. I'm not. There's no sign of the war, like as far as like the front goes.
Yeah, but you do get the distinct feeling
atmosphere around.
You do get the distinct feeling that this is a ledge that he's about to step off of. And I can't remember who plays Birdie. Colin Firth.
Yeah, he won for this.
His reading of that speech, it's nearly 1 for 1. I don't think it's entirely 1 for 1, but it's nearly 1 for 1 because after I watched it, I went and watched the actual broadcast.
There's got to be a side-by-side.
His delivery of it is just insane. Like, you would actually think that they just took the original
I'll bet you he probably studied that broadcast.
I'm sure he
did to nail that. But all right, on that note, I want to move on to our next pick, and I say let's
go to me. We're gonna save Hammy's for last.
Let's save our special
these
guest.
first 3 movies we can enjoy.
Speak for yourself.
There's a little enjoy. There's a little happiness.
I like good movies. What can I say?
So, Jared, then, since we're going to you next, what is your favorite World War II movie?
It was difficult to choose because there's so many. This was a problem Jake had, and the one I settled on is one that I only know one other person, and it was a coworker of mine who was much older, way back. Oh man, how old was I? 19 when she first told me about it. And then she spoiled the movie on accident. And she was like,
on accident?
When so and so dies. I'm so sorry. I go, it's okay. And then even when I watched the movie, I was hoping for that not to happen. And when it does, I was like, oh. The movie is The Mortal Storm. It's from 1940. It's a Frank Borzage movie. It's got Jimmy Stewart, Margaret Sullivan in it. Their last pairing. I think they were in like 3 or 4, maybe more movies together. And Jimmy Stewart is my favorite actor of all time. Really? Whenever people have asked me that last couple of years, a couple times, it's been like, well, who's your favorite actor? It's like, I don't know. And then finally I'm like, I think it's Jimmy Stewart. And this is one where he's playing a German. And he doesn't have an accent at all.
Jimmy Stewart, a German.
No one pretty much no one has accents in that movie.
Pretty much no one. Yeah, but I'm just, what does a Jimmy Stewart playing a German sound like just in everyday life? Hey, Ma, could you pass the sauerkraut? So the movie is basically, it follows the Roth family, and it's in the German Alps. I'm reading this off Letterboxd, by the way, as I do this. In the 1930s, it's before the first couple scenes are before Hitler has become chancellor, because it's kind of this last bit of what's it good? Idyllic, is that the word I'm looking for? Life before that happens, where the presence of Hitler is known, but he's not in full power yet.
He's just like a controversial figure.
And it kind of plays to the same thing that Life is Beautiful does, where it starts pretty happy. This one takes, 15 minutes?
It doesn't take long to settle on.
It's basically... go ahead.
It's when he comes back from his day, right?
Yeah.
Like almost immediately.
They're celebrating him.
That's really interesting because really, I just want to throw this out there really quick. Because I was sitting down to watch this and then I got taken away with other stuff going on, so I didn't make it through the whole movie. I made it up until the part where everything hits the fan.
So you're watching all the happy
stuff. So I was watching the happy. I'm like, wow, this is a really...
This is a really weird... Mortal Storm. This is a really weird movie for this tone.
I'm really surprised with how happy and thoughtful this is.
What is this, like Sound of Music before Sound of Music?
They're all celebrating his birthday and his anniversary there. I'm like, wow, this is really happy. What's the issue here? I completely missed the part where it hits the fan.
So it's basically watching how Hitler coming to power and the rise of the Nazi Party affects like this family and just the country in general. Because you have the scene where they listen to the radio, Hitler has been elected. The sons, who are all part of the party, are happy. And they're them and the and I think it's Robert Stack's.
Is there only,
Robert Young's
there's only
character.
2 sons, right?
Yes.
There's 3.
There's 3. There's 2 older ones, and there was the 1 younger one.
Yep. But then there's the
there was a friend.
Yep.
Who was with what's her name?
Is it Freya?
Oh, the one that
Freya.
let her go. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So they're all celebrating, and everyone else at the table is just silent, and it's like this feeling, this like grim feeling of, and it feels very, very prescient to the last decade. So like they're celebrating, and then everyone else is just kind of sitting there like, oh no, and even worse than an oh no, but just kind of like this defeated look. You can see it in all of them because, you know, they're not Jewish, but I think Jimmy Stewart and his mother are, right? But they never say that.
The dad is Jewish.
The dad.
At the very least. Because he's not...
They don't say it.
They say non-Aryan.
Yeah, they don't ever mention...
No, I don't think her dad is. He's an intellectual. I think that's
right. He's non-Aryan.
He is non-Aryan. Okay.
But they say that because this was 1940.
Yeah, and we didn't know that.
It wasn't so... No one realized how bad it was. And so they're already going out on a limb making the movie.
I was gonna say, this is really close to it.
39 was when he got in power.
This is...
No, it was like 36, wasn't it?
Oh, 39 was when
the war started.
So
interesting. We weren't even in the war yet.
No, we wouldn't have been.
That's what I find so fascinating about this movie is it's a representation of America, the public, knowing sort of the evil that was going on over there, but not really knowing what was happening.
Yeah,
so like
a newspaper headline kind of understand.
Yeah, and like so you see the father get taken away, and he gets taken to a jail. Well, you know, it's
basically
really
a camp.
But they don't portray it as that because I do not believe that we knew it at that point.
They knew how horrible it was.
That's so bizarre to like. Just to have that perspective on it.
Was just like, oh, Hitler's shipping people to concentration camps. Like, oh, okay, it's just like prisoners of war.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
no one knew how bad it was.
So it wasn't there yet in 1940.
Well,
yeah, because this came out in 40, so what, they were probably filming
1940.
Like 40. So.
Well, I know, but so they were filming it probably like the year before, realistically.
They could have been filming the same year because movies were made
that's true.
Much more assembly line like.
That's actually a good point. I forgot about all that.
And you know, when you were describing it to me, Jared, you said you said it's propaganda, but it's good or it's helpful.
You said it when we were I was talking to you, and you said, "Well, how did you say it?" It's kind of risen above being propaganda in a way.
I really have a gripe with people who write off movies as propaganda. Not to say you guys are, but like I really like. Eisenstein films, which is Soviet silent era.
Oh yeah,
and they say like, Battleship Potemkin is propaganda. It's like it's past that. Like we're well past propaganda if it's effective as a film. I think you kind of move past that. In this film, which one of the things Jared said, it's like it's propaganda, but if it's against Nazis, I guess I'm good.
I was gonna say, is that bad?
I was gonna say,
I think that's good.
It may be propagandist, but like it was a situation that at least the American, everybody, the American public we needed to know about it. We needed to be made aware.
But I think even on top of that, it's like, we're more still, it's an art piece. It's still being an effective narrative and not just serving a purpose of riling the troops up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially like when you, I think now that when you look back on it, it feels a lot more like you can just take this as a piece of art. At the time, I'm sure everyone was like leaning a little more to propaganda, but again, it's good.
It is a little bit surprising that Jimmy Stewart disappears from the movie for such a large chunk of the middle.
And that's it's how to say it, because both times I've seen it, it's like the only way they can get out is on skis over the mountains. And it's this hard task. And the first time they do it, we don't see it. I don't think we see much of it at all. We see them leave. So it's already like, and he has to come back. So when that happens, it's like, oh, now we have to do this, and we're actually watching. And of course, he makes it, and she gets across the border, but she gets shot and dies, which is it's very sad, very risky thing.
Yeah,
and it works. And the first half of this movie too, because I remember I'm kind of transitioning into this. The first half is full of those big scenes with the big images, the iconography. I remember where they turn the lights off and you can see the shadows on the wall of the book burning outside.
Great.
That's very well done because,
And like stuff like that where you have the juxtaposition of that because you saw the shot where the camera swings in and everyone's there waiting for him. And it's like everyone, and then everything switches because he doesn't align with things and he's a non-Aryan. Like everyone, there's a scene where they all leave his class because they won't hear this. How did they say it?
Well, he was saying that scientifically there's no difference between an Aryan's blood and a non-Aryan's blood, and then they're,
And everyone's like, "Oh, that's fake news. It's fake science."
Basically that.
In the movie, this is fake news.
Oh boy!
In the movie, that's the exact line.
And when did this movie come out again?
Really?
1940.
Huh?
Yes.
Weird.
Really, the line.
So weird how that
Some things don't
fits
change.
in.
Life imitates art.
Just stuff like that. Like it's fast because once Hitler's in power, everything just starts moving that fast in the wrong direction.
Well, yeah, because we might have already talked about this, but like he is not their biological father. He's their stepfather.
That's right.
The boys.
The older boys.
The older boys.
The younger boy is his.
And then the female.
Yep.
The lead.
The girl is his. Yep. And so in the beginning when they give, they're giving him his birthday presents and all that stuff, and then it's over.
Yep. The second he doesn't align with they think or what, it's like things become more important than family.
One of the things that kind of really ties that scene for me is in the beginning during that gift scene. I don't remember how they worded it again, but they make a comment when they establish their stepchildren to him, where he's like, "No matter what, you're my boys," kind of vibe. And then that immediate switch makes that extra painful. And then you get towards the tail end of the movie. Actually, I think it's the last scene before the very last part in the living room where they go back.
Yeah.
It's those two boys, and he is kind of questioning it because of
and
the sister's death, the father's death.
Everyone's gone.
Was it like the older one of the two? One of them questioned the other, and then the other yelled at him.
Yeah, he got on him for it. And that it's like almost a mini. I don't even want to call it a subplot because there's not a lot of attention brought to it. Very in focus. There's the scene in the beginning where it's like, "You're my boys anyway." They're part of it. There's the part where they leave home, and there's that scene. And it's almost like that in itself is its own mini tragedy, and this greater tragedy that's going on with Jimmy Stewart and
Margaret Sullivan. And it all comes to like their father's dead, their mother's gone, Freya's dead, and they've just heard about Freya dying. And it's like one of them, it's starting to break him. It doesn't mean he's changed. It doesn't mean he's excused. He's just starting to doubt the thing he's invested in, and the other one gets after him for it. Is like, "What? You can't be weak like this." And then it's one of my favorite shots in any movie ever is when he leaves and we're just sitting in this empty living room. It's wintertime, it's dark, and the camera's backing out of this empty house that we've been in for most of the movie. And we go out into the snow. I think we even hear the snow steps, behind us of him leaving, right?
No, isn't it? Doesn't it go through? Is that before the end? Like the end?
That's the last shot, and there's the voiceover.
Doesn't it go through the house and stop on the different spots
I think
where everybody was and have a juxtaposition of
it's right before
this is what Jimmy said. It's right before that.
That it's that confrontation between the brothers, and it's that pullback, and then it's where it's like, here's the chair they were sitting in during the birthday parties. And it's dark and but then there's like a spotlight on all their spots. It plays a line from earlier in the film.
That's right.
How do I put this? That shot feels very different than the rest of the film. It feels like the end of a play.
It's super stylized in that way.
And it is probably one of the best endings, at least to a war movie, that I've ever seen.
And I think the thing they quote at the end is from poetry from King George VI. I think I read that. I could be wrong. But like something that either he wrote or he liked or something like that. Something that has to do with King George VI, who was the main character of the movie we just talked about.
Huh.
That's around the same time. So just that whole, it's like there's, the last shot is what made me remember the movie the most, other than some of the big plot points. But watching it again and seeing how that first half was going so fast. And then you hit the second half, which is much slower and more deliberate. Especially that like marriage scene, where you can see Jimmy Stewart's mother giving them the family, what do you call it, chalice or something?
Yeah.
And she's shaking. because they're about to leave. And it's just the last thing that she can.
What does she say? Because she knows that he's not going to be able to come back for her.
Yeah, he can't come back. And
she
she's
says
too
something
old
like,
to leave.
she says, oh, what was it?
Something about how she was going to hold on to them.
It was something like, you're not going to be able to take this with you, but you'll know that you're a part of the family or something like that. Whatever it wasn't that. It was more eloquent than that, but it hit.
Yeah, because I remember thinking like, wow, we really slowed down. Then I realized, I get it. Like everything moves so fast because that's it just rapidly spreading. And now we're at this moment where we have to slow down. We have to breathe before that ending. It's just
life stops also in that kind of way.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, your life's going and it's on the up. You know, Freya got engaged in the scene right as the radio announced that he was chancellor.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it's his birthday and things are just looking very up for them. And then all of a sudden, you know, it all crumbles. I mean, life would slow down pretty considerably.
That would.
I'm laughing because of what happens next in that scene that we talked about where they spend 5-10 minutes discussing this, where the three boys cannot believe the others aren't happy. And they keep bothering Jimmy Stewart about coming to the rally. And then the last thing Robert Young does is he stops and turns his, well, aren't you coming? And Jimmy Stewart goes, no. It's delivered perfectly.
I need you to do that impression again.
No.
I really love your Jimmy Stewart impression. I just put that out there.
It's pretty good.
Very good impersonation. All right. On that note, you want to move into our last one?
No.
It's been a doozy of an episode, and we got a doozy of a...
I'm going to cry if we have to talk about it.
All right, well, we got to get to it eventually. Alexander Hamilton, what is your favorite World War II movie?
My favorite World War II movie is Come and See by Elem Klimov, which is a Soviet Union film, particularly from a Belarus perspective. Obviously now the Soviet Union has collapsed since this film has been out. So that distinction wasn't by 1985 it was getting a lot more clear. Yeah.
It was 91 when it collapsed. The wall came down in 89.
Yeah.
And they collapsed in 91 or 93.
You know,
like
it was like towards the tail end of the Soviet Union, you know, versus there's some other Soviet films from the 20th century that, you know, I think of, sorry, deaf ears here. Kalatazov was from Georgia and like his films didn't feel Georgian. But in this, it's very close to Belarus. It's about another genocide that the Nazis
carried out.
Yeah, that it wasn't the Jewish people; it was the Belarus people. I'm trying to remember exactly how many, but there was like almost like 600 to 800 villages in Belarus that were just scorched earth completely.
Jeez.
And this film tries to tackle that.
It's not going to be fun.
This is probably the scariest movie ever made. It's a horrifying, harrowing film that does not let you off the hook. Ironically, the filmmakers have said they pulled back quite a bit. I don't know how you can imagine.
About the dogs thing? Did you read about that? We don't need to say it out loud. There's something with dogs that I read about. It was like, oh, that was in a rough draft.
It's hard to start talking about.
It sounds like it's covering like a lot, and it's
just to kind of wade into it. I thought I like
jump in the mud.
Okay, just to kind of wade into that. That mud scene was the most like that was okay. This is gonna sound really bad.
Oh boy, that's a great start.
That mud scene got the most like visceral, like and it's like nothing. Like it's just going through a bog.
But it's how you feel when you're watching the film. You feel like you're in that bog and you're drowning in the mud the entire runtime. You're just stuck and you can't look away. The film is great. I love the title. It was originally going to be called Kill Hitler, which is a great title.
I almost like that title more, to be honest.
That is a good title given the end of it too.
But what I like about Come and See is it's almost taunting the viewer.
What do you mean by that? That's interesting.
Film, it's hard. See, this is one of the reasons why. Just to put it out there, Dickey didn't watch the movie.
I really wanted to see it. I
so it's hard to talk about when you like have no idea what it's like.
I know. Just explain it to me. Like I want
to. So you know how sometimes maybe you don't, but sometimes you'll go into a film and you'll after the credits are done, you feel like a different person.
Oh yeah,
finished it.
Oh, absolutely.
That times 10.
That is this in his other pick.
and it's the kind of film where it's like come and see the horrors of this war. Like especially at 1985, we're getting to a point where you're getting 40 years at that point, let alone nowadays. I mean, we're getting close to 100 years from these events. We see all the time nowadays people kind of denying certain events, and this was kind of point. It's like it's not romantic. There's nothing good about this. This was a tragedy of all accounts, and we're gonna show you.
One thing I was very. I don't want to say pleased with about the movie because it's a very hard movie to say I was pleased or I liked it. So one thing I appreciated about it was, and this is something I think modern cinema has done to me, is and we're good with spoilers. Everybody's good with spoilers. Here's spoilers for this. When he and the girl are in that field and it gets bombed.
Yeah.
I thought that this was all going to somehow be in his head, like a nightmare. It is not. It all actually happened, and I appreciated that the movie did not pull the rug out from underneath me in that manner, because so often nowadays
that cop out's used.
Cite atonement, cite.
It brings you back in because they want you to like the movie. Those Hollywood, it's like, well, we have to reel them back in, otherwise they're gonna be disgusted or they're gonna leave.
Mm-hmm.
Did you say cop out?
I said that.
He said cop out.
I heard cop out. Yeah, and then I read also a little bit on, I believe is Alexei is the actor. Did I say his name?
Yeah.
I think the Klimov said like they had to find someone who wasn't an actor, but also like have him understand to a point what he's supposed to be going through as a character without traumatizing him. Because he was
14.
15, yeah, 14.
So one of the things too with this film, and I don't know how much you've looked into it, and I know you don't know at all. It's a filmmaking marvel. But part of it, and it kind of sparks a debate. A lot of it was practical, and I don't mean like practical like a practical effect. I mean like bullets, like real live bullets were flying over their head, and those explosions in that scene were real and right behind them. And it.
You say one got close to his ear or something?
Yeah, it's like flying right there.
Why?
It's Russia.
I mean, yeah, no,
that's why.
It all makes sense.
I will also say that at the beginning, I thought it was going to be the little blonde kid that was the main character.
Oh, yeah.
The one that originally said, I found my gun. Why can't you find yours?
No, do the voice.
I can't.
I found my gun.
I can't get. Oh, my God.
Oh, my God, that's a horrifying voice.
And this whole thing, the whole movie gets going because he digs up that rifle and brings it back. Doesn't the elder say, like, you shouldn't have done that?
Yeah, because he wants to fight. He wants to fight for his country and fight the Nazis, and they're like...
So, were those... Okay, this is a misunderstanding I had with the movie. When they first come to get the kid out of the village, were those Nazis or were those Soviet soldiers?
Those were Soviet soldiers recruiting because he was like...
Okay, because the one dude in like the duster coat looked like a Nazi to me.
Yeah, no, it was just Soviet wear.
Okay.
Help
me
remember, was it he did join or did they impress him? Like, did they forcefully take him?
I think it was a little bit of both because he wanted to go. His mom didn't want him to go. And they said, we're either going to take him or we're going to kill him or something.
It was completely there. He had the gun. He said he was ready. And so it was like any like obstruction of this.
And then immediately when he goes with them, they start mistreating him, throwing him on the wagon thing.
Yeah. And they yoink him. He's bleeding. And
mm-hmm.
the town idiot, as he called him in there, is kind of like looking at him. And it's a warning. There's a few different times in the movie where like a character like looks, again, bringing back to the taunting, looks through the camera, just looking at the viewer, forcing you to kind of view it all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I don't remember what the girl's name is.
Gloria. No, that's his name.
Glasha.
So there's a couple of times where, not to go again back to I thought this was kind of make believe for a while, but where I thought she was going to be like a sage type role or something, where she's like looking at the camera and it's like the frame is like literally like this. And it's like, this is really haunting. Oh my Lord.
Yeah.
And they get separated and we never see her again? Is that
She
right?
stays on the island with the village.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I don't know why we never see her again.
He goes to get food and then it just
spirals.
Yeah, the whole.
Because he was going to steal some and the one guy saves him in the field, right? He doesn't give him up.
No, he hides behind the cow, I thought.
Yeah, that's when the bullets were whizzing by.
Yeah, that's why he doesn't give him up.
That was a cool scene. Cool. Wow, I shouldn't say that. That was a very well done thing.
Effective.
Effective, yep. Where it's like dusk and you see the light of the bullet. And
they're like lasers.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Like if
those are live rounds.
I was gonna say if war was actually like that, like
when I watched the Criterion release, which is a great restoration.
That's what he watched.
I had seen it prior to the restoration was, I think, on cinema tours when I saw the film for the first time. I randomly decided to watch it one night.
Did you get some popcorn?
Yeah,
I can see going into that not really knowing what you're gonna get.
I knew. So there's a very famous shot from the film. I remember showing my boss one time the shot when I jokingly recommended the movie. And it's towards the end of the film. It's right after he gets out of the barn, and then the Nazis hold him and put the gun to his fucking head. Sorry, pardon me. I'm so sorry.
You're fine.
Put the gun to his. It's just such a scary scene, and I just like venting out of it. He ages so visibly throughout the whole movie from what he's seen, and he's just sitting there. And I just remember seeing that before I saw the film for the first time. So I knew what I was going into, but I didn't know what I was going into.
Sorry, go ahead.
But I saw the restoration of the Criterion Blu-ray. There's a lot of great supplements on there. I remember there's an interview with Roger Deakins. Obviously, it didn't have anything to do with the film, but he was talking about it. And he talked about how the film had a lot of beauty in a way. And that was one of the scenes that he cited. There's this weird feeling in the calmer moments of the film that kind of like put a spell on you. You kind of get lost in it.
It's genuinely surreal to sit down and watch that movie. Like, it has a hold of you and you're like, I don't know why I'm so engaged, but I am. Like, I should be horrified by this, but I'm not.
Sounds like a movie you have to be in like the right headspace to watch it.
It's not
like
a casual watch.
What's that?
It's not a casual
yeah,
watch.
like you're not just gonna flick it on and just like find one. It's like, oh, that sounds interesting.
I
like,
will tell you that neither one of these two told me what it was going to be before.
Oh,
I watched
really?
it.
You see, I knew because the reason that they kept egging me to watch this is because it was so bleak and depressing. And I'll be honest, I don't get into that headspace very often. Shocker. So it's hard for me to like fully like sit down, just be ready to just be sad for like 2 hours.
So this is going to be a weird take for me, and it's going to maybe say something about my mental state. I didn't find it depressing. I thought it was engaging, and I thought it was important, and I thought it was horrific, but I
don't call it depressing.
I did not find it depressing.
Depressing is the wrong word.
Something to feel depressing about a movie, because you just feel hollow at the end.
Yeah.
So is this one of the things?
I was exhausted. I was not as exhausted as what I expected to be based on what you told me, but I was kind of like, this was the movie that made me think, is it really okay for us to make fun of something like this in the ways that we do?
Or to use it as entertainment?
Yeah.
It's the most effective anti-war film probably ever made.
I feel like when you portray it as that horrific, you're going to convince a lot of people like, no, war is not like it is in the movies. Like it's
that ending is intense.
Yeah.
The last like 30, 40 minutes are
everything. The climax of the film. I still want to like not talk about it because I really think you should see the film.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just an experience that I think, despite it all, is an incredibly valuable experience to have.
Mm-hmm.
But the climax of the film is easily the most gutting part of the film, which feels impossible when you're that far in the film that it could get much worse.
How long is the movie, really quick?
It's about 2.5 hours.
142.
Okay.
It's not as long as Goodfellas, I don't think.
No. Isn't
Well,
Goodfellas like 155 something?
Well, he makes long
longer.
movies. That's
It's a little bit longer.
Also, just to give a little bit of my Achilles heel here, geography, and like I didn't really have a whole lot of historical context for this going into it. Like when it came up with Belarus, I was like, oh, that's probably now Belarus, but I didn't understand the genocide part of it as in that part of the world. And so when they're in that village for the climax of the film, and they're taking that guy out by his heels, and they call him a Yid, I'm like, okay, that's a word they use for a Jewish person. But I didn't have the context of, oh, all the people in this neighborhood are people who are Jewish, not just him. And I was like, that's really weird that they're doing this for just one person.
Yeah.
And that's my own miseducation, but
I don't even think that's anything to like gripe too hard on, because part of what the film is trying to do is the fact that it's not talked about the genocide in Belarus. I know that the director of the film read a novel by the co-writer of the screenplay. Obviously, this was prior to writing the screenplay, and it took him like 7 years to make the film.
Oh wow!
All the setbacks, Censorship was a big one on there.
I'm gonna say yeah, because this is coming from Russia and Soviet Union, so I'm sure there's a lot of issues getting into play here.
Yeah, it did not get out too far. I mean, it did, and for them, it's like this is not a film to just like. This is not like a movie. Mm-hmm. It's not a film that needs to engage an audience in an entertaining way. It's a film that we're making to shine light on this national tragedy that they have. I mean, they have memorials at like every village in Belarus, like today. That was scorched earth, that was completely obliterated. And it means a lot to them, but it's not shined on because it's World War II. There's atrocities in every country at this point. Mm-hmm. And it was something that was very close to them, and it's not talked about as much. So I don't even think it's something to, compared to other things, not knowing the context going in, because that's the role of the film, is to give that context to the viewer to come and see it all.
Now that I think about it, like come and see, it seems like a really correct title to use, because just like you come and witness what.
It's a biblical thing, isn't it?
It is a biblical thing.
That's what you got the thing.
Yeah, come and see was something they talked about for whole series.
Yeah, they addressed that in one of the supplements I watched with the director.
Interesting.
When they weren't allowed to do Kill Hitler, which even then there's a lot more meaning to it too. It's not even just the the provocative nature of it. It's to kill the Hitler inside of you, was what they were saying.
That's interesting.
Thing at the end, that's the climax.
And in the very end of
I would not call that the climax. Yeah.
That's just the ending. The ending of the film. Which
Sorry, Dickey, we're being very vague for you.
I'm gonna keep it vague, but that's part of it. And not entirely vague. There's a point where prior to the scene we're thinking about right now, mm-hmm. Where they have the Nazis that did another thing in the film. Frankly, I'm also not talking about it because it's so hard to talk about. I don't know how to talk about it in this podcast where you guys watch cartoons.
Yeah, this is a very different episode.
That is a very fair point.
This is a very different episode, which I really...
There's a part where they do something very horrific, and then the Belarus army, which has been absent for a majority of the film at this point, mm-hmm. They find them, and there's a couple of them, the Nazis, who are like, kill them, like burn them. They should suffer for what they've done because they're outnumbered at that point. Mm-hmm. In the Belarus army, they just shoot them. They're not burning them because they're not the Nazis. They are not going to be as horrific.
Is that the same leader that was at the camp with?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder. It wasn't like stated, but I was like, he looks and sounds the same. He must be the same. Like, that's important somehow.
And it was the same. It is the same one. And that was a pretty big distinction. So the kill the Hitler inside of you. Don't be like that.
Don't be,
You know,
which
that was a major part of it.
Which is why, in the end, all of that footage is going in reverse.
Yeah.
Which I really hope
makes a lot of sense now.
Yeah.
I just really quick want to mention, I really hope this discussion is enticing people who have not seen this, which I can't imagine there are very many people that have seen this. So go out, and if you want to watch these movies and experience this, then go out and try to look out for them so you can just experience what we're talking about. And I know, obviously, I should have watched it, and I tried to set out time, and it's really
as difficult.
Unlike me,
as difficult as it is something you should experience. As a filmmaker, just as a person.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like even if you're not super interested in making movies, which obviously all of us are because we're movie nerds, it's something that you should just watch to really understand the tragedy that
historically important.
It's historically important. It's not out here to make money. It's not out here to entertain. Yeah, it's
out there to chronicle
I would say
country.
It's like a documentary is not the right word to use, but it's just just saying it how it is. Documenting. Exactly. That's kind of what I was thinking. But you guys have anything else before we wrap up this magnificent episode?
Do either of you have anything else? I have a funny story go ahead.
I might, but one of the major reasons I chose this film, outside of it actually being a very important film to me, again, as weird as it is to say, as you've addressed, it is one of my favorites.
That's a weird
thing to call it.
Oh yeah, that's what the show is.
Bring it all back around.
It's a film that had a big impact on me, but I also immediately kind of knew it was going to be a juxtaposition to the other films that were there. Not being an American film, I know Life is Beautiful is Italian.
There's no more conflict in Come and See than there is in King's Speech.
Different.
But you mentioned how it's not made for money. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just an interesting point of view. A lot of international cinema, frankly, but a lot of Eastern cinema in particular, kind of getting that different perspective, particularly in this event that is worldwide. So that's why I wanted to do this one.
No, it's just such a different and I think interesting is fair. An interesting perspective to see that's not just American movies that are made for money. Like it's more serious. It's meant to be taken more serious.
It's meant to have an impact.
Yes. Which I'm not saying I really quick, I recently watched this, so it's on the top of my head. When I look at Chernobyl, obviously that was made for, I know you guys, I know. I know it was, it was made, at the end of the day, it was made for money. That's how HBO works.
Even entertainment, I think, is even a fair point.
Mm-hmm. But and at the same time, even though it's made for those things, it still has something very important to say. Which I just want to mention that things can still be made modernly that still has something very important to say, even though they're made for money and made for entertainment. But something like this just cuts all that out, so it doesn't even have to worry about enticing bigger audiences. Say. Just want to throw that out there. And I know you have one last thing to say as well.
Oh, I just had a story to kind of bring some levity to this discussion. We all remember my friend Drew.
Oh, Drew!
We all love you. Miss you, buddy. Can't wait to have you on the podcast as well. This is the type of movie that Drew would watch, right? So I'm sitting here watching, I wonder if Drew has watched this. I wait for one of those scenes where it's just Gosha's face. I pause it and I take a picture of the scene and I'm like, on this one frame, what is this movie? Oh, that's Come and See.
What did he say? I looked for years for a copy of that, and you're like, I just have
you kids got it so easy. I had to find a copy of that and then go find a fan subs and then sync them up manually.
God. That sounds like a nightmare.
Drew, I love you, but you were so funny.
Drew. Well, so wrapping everything up, this was quite an episode. It's a very long one. If you stuck to
120 minutes.
How long?
120 minutes.
Holy-
Well, sorry, hour and 20.
Oh, I was gonna say, holy crap! It's been 2 hours.
Oh my god!
Wow.
An hour and 20 minutes.
But we got
It's almost as long as the world story.
we got into some really interesting.
Though.
Yeah.
Better too.
Okay. All right.
Much better.
But yeah, I gotta say,
Better slapstick. What?
thank you for listening to our episode. If you stuck with us, and thank you for Hammy for joining us. This has been so much fun having
He
you
should
on.
do the media shout outs.
Oh, we want to let just.
Wait, he needs a napkin if he's going to do that.
He needs the script. Does he have
napkin?
somebody find
I
the
don't
script
know.
for
Where'd
him?
you put the
Oh,
napkin?
you find the script. Okay. So, all right, let's do this. Ready? So, Hammy, all the people, where can they find us and follow us for more awesome content?
So I just say like check it out.
Yeah.
Check us
Follow
out.
Follow.
Follow us
And-
on the Facebooks and the Twitters and the Instagrams. Follow our very funny, very cool,
You guys told them.
funny TikTok.
Nicely
account.
done. Nicely done.
If you want to see a really funny come and see meme, you gotta go to our TikTok.
Oh, do not put that on me. Do not put that on me.
Now you
How
must.
the heck am I going to do that?
Now you must.
Oh,
Funny
no.
TikTok.
Oh, no.
Listen to our download.
Listen to us, download
Listen
it.
and download our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher,
Yep, Google.
and here on the YouTube or not here,
Wherever you're listening and
wherever
watching
you're
us.
listening on your podcast listening device.
Like and subscribe and ring our bell.
Absolutely.
Ring the bell.
And one last quick thing, give us reviews if you like what you do, like on Apple, on Spotify, because that really helps out our ratings. So, thank you, Listen, at one point we like to monetize this, and that's where we get that, okay?
So, I think
I thought the point wasn't making money.
I think to decompress after this episode, I'm going to go need to cry in that corner over there for a bit.
We actually that's
Yeah,
a closet
we
back
gotta-
there. If any you can see that. Dude, that's a closet.
Yeah, we should probably go into that.
I should probably stick Dickey in there.
I think you're very funny. Anyway, from all of us here at All of Slate Media, thank you so much for watching and listening. You'll have more content coming out soon. We will see you later. Bye-bye.